Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hospitality MD. I'm your host, Kyle Allison. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Before we get started, I have to give a huge thank you to the International Hospitality Institute and each and every one of you because Hospitality MD was just designated as the number 12 hospitality podcast on the globe. So thank you guys so much for whoever nominated us. Thank you for listening. And this year we're going for the number 1 spot. So be sure to help us out by subscribing to this channel, turning on notifications for this channel, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. Now this week's episode is with Yaz and Terry Ruff. They are hoteliers turned hotelpreneurs who have recently started their own hotel safety and compliance company called Prosafe. The first half of this episode is very much focused on their views and philosophies on hospitality, stories from their career coming up together in the industry. And the second half of the episode focuses on the world of panic buttons, keeping hoteliers safe and compliance. This episode is a do not miss, so enjoy it. And be sure to tune in next week as we start a brand new series called What I Learned in 9 Weeks as the GM of the worst hotel in the brand. Greg, Tom, and I are diving deep into my experience taking on my first GM role at the worst Embassy Suites hotel on the planet and what I learned along the way. You guys do not want to miss this. We are heating up in 2022. Enjoy the video, and I'll see you at the end. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hospitality MD. My guests today are Yaz and Terry Ruff. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the show with us. How are you?
Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you, Kyle.
Doing well.
Certainly.
Thanks for having us, Kyle.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Terry, this is your first time ever on a podcast, right?
It is.
We're glad to have the honor here at Hospitality MD. I'm sure there will be many more where this came from for both of you gentlemen.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So I like to start every interview with the same question, which is in relationship to your enunciation moments into hospitality. So really, I would encourage you to think back as long as you can remember to a moment that you had, whether that was as a child or when you were first starting out in the industry, that made you kind of have this bit by the bug moment where you're like, wow, like hospitality is meaningful to me. Why don't we go ahead and start with you, Yaz?
All right, cool. So every single summer growing up, my family used to take me on like a 3-month vacation. So I've been to roughly 40 countries, and every single summer was filled with hotels. And I thought I was going to be playing in the NFL. Like growing up, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be great. And then I collapsed during 2-a-days my senior year. So after that happened, I asked my pops. I was like, what industry do you think would be a good industry for me to get involved with? And he pointed me in the right direction and said, why don't you do hospitality, but make sure you join, one of the big brands. Don't join just any hotel. Join like one of the best hotels that are out there. And honestly, it just all grew from there. I ran with the advice, and here we are.
That's fascinating, man. Like, how did your pops have the foresight to know what? I mean, he must have just known you really well, I guess. Like, and what is your dad in the industry at all, or what does he do?
So my dad has 7 brothers, and when they came over to the U.S. in the 80s, they had a choice between 2 different franchises. It was McDonald's and 7-Eleven. They went with 7-Eleven, and they ended up having like 15 at their peak of business. I really wish they went with McDonald's because back then it was, I think, $20,000 for a franchise, and now it's over $1 million just for one location. So if they went with the McDonald's route, I don't know if I'd end up in hospitality, but I definitely wanted to carve my own route. So instead of just going the family business route, I wanted to carve my own road, per se.
Well, and you certainly have, and we'll definitely discuss that. What about you, Terry? What's your enunciation moment?
So for me, I have a very similar story to Yaz. My parents were both school teachers, so they were off in the summer, and they would take me abroad. I've been to, roughly about 35 countries. And for me, I was in, I'll never forget the moment. I was in this beautiful hotel in Nepal. And this hotel, I don't know how it even existed. It was absolutely gorgeous. I'll never forget the doorman. Anytime you walked through the door, would open the door and snap his feet and give you a little salute. And for me, I was maybe in middle school at the time, and I was like, wow, that is it. Just the feeling it gave me was something that I had never felt before. It was indescribable. And from that moment on, I to be able to give that feeling to somebody, really, it gave me that passion that I feel today.
Man, that is so freaking cool, by the way. And I'm jealous of both of you guys. 40 countries, 35 countries. My mom's a flight attendant. I can fly anywhere for free if I'm flying on standby. I'm nowhere even near close to that. But I think part of the reason for that is when you're flying standby, it's very difficult to plan international travel because you just may not get on the plane. But that's besides the point. That's awesome. I think definitely exposure to travel at a young age is critical because now, kind of like you said, Terry, when you go and you work in a hotel now or, in the past, you understand the power of making somebody feel. Because I think I know what feeling you're talking about. Is that important? You felt like, wow,
Yes.
I'm an important person that somebody would really be going out of their way for me like this.
Exactly.
And I've had that feeling myself traveling. Even just walking into a hotel lobby is humbling experience, especially when you're a young kid and you're seeing it for the first time, and it's almost like nothing could ever go wrong here. Everything is perfect behind the scenes. And then you start working in the industry and you realize nothing is ever perfect behind the scenes.
That couldn't be more accurate.
Yeah, exactly. But at least when you're that age, you can, it's ignorance is bliss to a certain extent. But you want to extend that same ignorance to your guests when you start working in hotels. You want them to believe that nothing could go wrong, just like you believed that at one point.
Exactly.
But how did you guys get into the industry anyway? You were young when you kind of were enunciated into that hospitality lifestyle. But tell me a little bit about your pathways, and Yaz, will go back to you.
Okay, cool. So that closest hotel after Pops pointed me in that direction was it was a Fairfield Inn in South Jersey, and it was the recommended hotel of Rowan University. So I went to an interview for front desk. He hired me. I didn't really start at front desk right away. Had to work my way up a little bit. But after 3 or 4 months or so, finally got to the front desk and really just worked my way up. 4 years at front desk all through college. Did a management internship, so I got a feel for every single position and every single department. And that hotel was actually very unique because we went through literally a new GM every single quarter for about those 4 years. So, and I think in a previous conversation, I've mentioned before, it's almost like we've been through, it's like working at 15 different hotels because every single 3 months it was somebody new in there, but it was really eye-opening as well because you got to see the best and the worst and kind of mold your own management and leadership off of that. So it was definitely a good experience and kind of helped propel and get me to a point where I am today.
Did you feel like the hotel sucked? If you have a hotel, and anybody listening who's ever been through something like this, if you have a revolving door of GMs, something is heinously wrong. something is broken and there's a reason why you have a revolving door of GMs. But at the time, did you see it that way? Or were you kind of just like in your own little world of like, as long as I'm taking care of the guests and I'm doing my thing, like it doesn't really matter?
And I think you kind of put it perfectly. As long as we were taking care of the guests, and that was something that our front desk team was really good at. We owned every single opportunity that came in front of us, and if there was an issue, we felt empowered. We got it taken care of, and I feel like some of it was that hotel, if I remember correctly, only had one washer, and it was a transient hotel with 2 dryers. So you would have 70 checkouts and 1 washer, a small washer at that. So imagine trying to keep up with that, and if you didn't have the right team in place, it kind of, it would blow up every Sunday almost is what it felt like. But all in all, outside of that, I don't think it was anything that any of the GMs did in particular. I feel like they felt that pressure. You know what I'm saying? It was very hard to get that hotel to a point where it was running where it should have been. If you have the right team in place, if you have leadership, if you have the right associates, the hotel finds a way to kind of, it finds that flow. And I feel like the biggest thing was trying to get to that point where, we got out of neutral and we got it into drive, per se. So that was like, we couldn't get to cruise control for a while, but eventually, it got there, and, it just kind of, it was an eye-opening experience, to say the least.
So you almost had the experience of like being there for like kind of a turnaround to a certain extent of the hotel. You stuck it out and you were able to kind of see the process, which I'm sure like as a sponge, you were probably absorbing all of that, observations and information in, and like you mentioned, seeing what works, what doesn't work, how did we get it to this point. And, for a first time hotel job, I think that's a great way to start out. And Terry, you worked at the same hotel with Yaz, is that right?
Correct. Yes. I started my hospitality at a private country club near my house. But when I transitioned to college, I looked to the closest hospitality job that I could find, and that coincidentally was at the same hotel that Yaz was working at as well. He had started, I want to say, 2 or 3 months before I did.
So that's where you guys met for the first time then, right?
Correct. Yes. Yes. and I couldn't agree with Yaz more. That single washer was extremely a big pain point. I'll never forget the multiple times it broke down where the property had no washer and 2 dryers. There was a sister property next door, a Residence Inn, and we would wheel the laundry from that hotel to the other hotel to wash it, and then wheel it back to dry it and bring more dirty linens over. And it was quite the learning experience, not only in operational aspects, but some days you would come in and just the GM plaque on the wall, the name would be empty. The AGM, was questionable. Someone would come to me, I need help. What can I do? I have this situation or this problem. And like Yaz said, we felt empowered to, it was our job to make sure that this guest was taken care of and they were having a good experience at our property. And, although there was a lot of turmoil and, like Yaz said, we held it together as a front desk, and we worked as a well-oiled team, and regardless of whether, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that's really interesting because like normally like when you think of like empowerment, it usually comes down from the top. Like it's like something that you're gifted, like you are empowered because the GM has deemed that you have the right to make the, decisions for yourself and that you're empowered. But like with a revolving door of GMs, this is like a sort of like innate empowerment. It seems like that wasn't coming from any like above like power. It was just something that you guys had. Like, can either of you like just kind of describe that? Because You understand what I'm saying, right? Like normally the GM would be like, you guys are empowered, but you didn't have a stable GM, so you just did it yourself. Like, how did that come about?
Well, at least for me, I felt that, we had a job to do. And whether we had a GM, whether we were, told that we were empowered or not, we know we needed to do it. And we needed to pull ourselves together and pull our team together and deliver on what, what our promises are.
Mm-hmm. A
Did you
lot of
feel like Yeah, did you guys feel like you were both leaders, like in the hotel, even if you were just front desk agents? Because what I'm getting is kind of like, I don't know, I feel like you guys were probably like the glue that was holding this hotel together collectively, and it's probably a reason why you're still friends to this day. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's accurate, honestly. Um, it was really like a lot of the time it wasn't like we had the support staff either at the front desk. When we learned the front desk, it was, you didn't have a houseman 3 to 11. You'd have 80 check-ins, and it would be like just you most of the time. If we were lucky, Terry and I would actually get on a shift together, and we would dominate. And one of us would be the runner, and one of us would kind of be the face and we would alternate. So whoever was at the front desk, we really just kind of banked on one another and made sure that, if there was something that was in our control, that we got it taken care of. Because as you know, anybody in hospitality, if a guest goes to bed upset, regardless of what you do for them that following morning, they went to bed upset. And usually that's like the death sentence, per se. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you give them a comp night, what have you. They're still going to remember that experience was less than perfect. And if it was in our control, we just tried to make sure that every single time we hit it out of the park.
That's an interesting sentiment. I don't know if I've ever really heard anybody say it that way about the guest. If they go to bed upset, you're basically you've lost the game to a certain extent. Because most of the time what you hear is if the guest leaves the property upset, you've lost the game. But I do think that there's a certain level of like irreparable damage that's done if a guest has this bad taste in their mouth as they're laying down to go to sleep inside your hotel. Like I recently stayed at a hotel and my air conditioning was just not good. It was like just pitter puttering, not cooling down the room. But I checked in late and I just didn't, and I was, on a team member rate and I'm like, I'll be all right. But I went to bed feeling some type of way about it.
Yep.
And obviously like it's going to be okay. It wasn't the end of the world. It's not like I have, I'm not going to destroy the hotel's reputation or anything like that. But when you said that, I thought of that time because I never said anything about it. And even if I had like asked for compensation the next morning, like I kind of went to bed feeling like, man, like I normally look forward to like a really cool room when I stay in a hotel. Like hotel air conditioning is like the best, man. Like it's better than you get it at home.
Yep. No bill either.
No bill, so just crank it and leave it on, and usually like those P-TAG units they'll run and they're pretty for the most part pretty reliable. So it's definitely something that I looked forward to every time I stay in a hotel. And like when you walk in the door and you get that rush of cold air when you walk in, I don't know. Let me know in the comments, guys, if I'm crazy or if this is if other people experience this too, because for me, hotel air conditioning is pretty important to my experience. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, air conditioning always. I would say that I'm one of the most temperate folks you'll ever meet. Me and heat don't really get along, and my origins are from a very warm place. So you would be like, "How is this the case? I thought you were built for this, but no, I'm not." Like, you put me in the sun for a couple of minutes, I'm melting and I'm uncomfortable. So I mean, that's definitely a big piece. I'd also say like just that from that moment you walk through that door. I always like the front desk person has all of the control of whether you're just another cookie cutter hotel on the side of a highway, or if it's a memorable moment or a memorable experience. And I feel like that's something that when Terry and I were working together, we did a really good job at. Every single opportunity that we had, we would try to make it a memorable moment. You know what I mean? You want to differentiate, because if you're working at a Marriott or a Hilton or IHG property, there are 500 other properties that share that same flag or whatever brand that you're working at. So we always felt like it was up to us to kind of create that memorable experience, and that wow, I'm not just walking into another hotel. I think I might. And I've had folks over the years say, and we weren't the Ritz-Carlton at all. But then you'd have folks that would say, I've stayed at Ritz-Carltons, this and that, and this is by far one of the best experiences I've ever had. And that's really rewarding. That's why, it's moments like that where you remember why you're in hospitality. And you're like, wow, I really made that person stay. And regardless of the, 189, 119, 229 rate that they paid for that room, they don't even care, because you really made it a memorable experience for them. And that's kind of the nature of the beast, I would say.
Yeah, it may not be the doorman clicking his feet and opening the door every time you come through, but it's the essence of hospitality that people really take to heart with them. I'm actually curious to know if you guys have any stories of your time working together, particularly when you were actually working on shift together, about a time that you guys teamed up to totally blow the guest experience out of the water, or to turn a negative situation around. Does anything come to mind?
Well, one moment that I do remember, it was a Friday night, and we had multiple sports teams coming in. We were sold out, but no one had arrived yet. We had something, 90 some arrivals, and it's, 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. And we know we're going to be hit. We're going to be hit, quick. So we pre-blocked, pre-keyed everyone. We had everything set to go. We had bottles of water chilled and ready to go. So as soon as the team started pulling in, Yaz took one computer, I took the other computer, and we just cruised through the line and got everyone in. I'd say within a half hour, we had everyone completely checked in their rooms, good to go. And that was one time that was just, we were waiting, and all of a sudden it was go time. We knew we had one focus, and that was it,
Was it one of those things where they all showed up on buses and you didn't know that they were going to all show up on buses until they did?
Exactly.
The rush would just come, and it was oh my God. But I mean, it's experiences like those too, where the coal is put to the fire, and you're like, wow, this is all right. I feel like I'm ready for anything that's thrown at me at this point. After you run through a situation like that, I've had experiences. I think this was later on, Terry. This was at the Residence Inn North after college.
Okay.
We had this famous World Series winning baseball player staying at our hotel, and I'm pretty sure it was Terry and I that we actually shared an operations there was two operations managers. Terry and I were both we were able to handle anything that was thrown at us at that hotel, and our GM at the time was like, this has never been a hierarchy before where there's been two operations managers, but I can't go in one way or the other. I think it's best that we just have both of you guys be the operations manager and just kind of go from there. So
that's unheard of, man, for a Residence Inn.
Yeah.
That's so funny, man, that you guys are the same position at the same hotel, and they just made it up specifically for both of you guys to have an opportunity. That's so funny, man.
But it was I remember Terry, it wasn't that, I think somebody called out or something, and I feel like this gentleman's there was an issue with his vehicle. I can't remember because we're 10 years back, but we had to go I think one of us had to cover the desk and one of us had to actually go pick him up and bring him back to the hotel. But it was just like we always were off the cuff and kind of just any opportunity that presented itself, whether we handled that situation or not, we always thought outside the box of what's gonna provide the best experience for whoever it is, for that matter, at the end of the day. And I think like a couple years later, we actually got like his jersey like autographed, and that was like a part. You know how Marriott's pretty specific with its procurement. But we had the gentleman's jersey in our breakfast area, and that was like a big hitting point. Every single time somebody like walked in, they'd be like, "Oh my God!" Like, because we were in the Philly market, so you had a lot of Phillies fans, so that kind of helped out. So,
and that was because of the way that you guys like. He loved the hotel so much because of the way you guys had curated everything that he eventually like gave you guys a jersey to hang up.
Yeah. It was just like,
yes.
This is
that's so cool.
And it was a good talking point too, because regardless of regardless of who walked in the door, that connected with almost everybody. That was a sports fan at least. So it was cool.
Well, and to me, it also makes it seem like the guest might feel like they're staying at like a more luxurious property because, like, you know, if they go to a Residence Inn and they feel like, oh, well, it's just a Residence Inn, but then it's like, oh, well, this was good enough for this famous World Series playing baseball player, and it was, you know, he had such a great experience, so I'm staying at this hotel. You know, I'm important. I'm important too, just like he is. So that's a cool kind of psychological piece for the guest too, to see that and be like, oh, I'm staying where the celebrities stay, kind of.
And that hotel too, I think we had NFL Films right behind it, so you'd literally have like Merrill Hodge walk in, like, and you'd be checking him in, and he'd have his travel bag he'd leave his travel bag at the hotel, and every single time he'd check in, you'd have like, I remember one time, I think, I don't know if I should say it, but I think it was misplaced, and it wasn't too far. Just I think there was a spot for it, and somebody put it in a different spot, and that was like kind of interesting scenario. It's like, oh, you
that
definitely
mini heart attack moment.
Yeah. It's like they're going on the NFL Live tomorrow or something. So we'll make sure we get that for you.
Yeah. So tell me about your guys' like kind of involvement with housekeeping. You started out at front desk. I want to hear a little bit about how you've come to either enjoy, not enjoy, love, hate the housekeeping department. Because it relates a lot to what you're doing now, and I kind of want to make sure that we have a little bit of a foundation, you know, about your experience with that before we transition into your current adventures.
Awesome. Terry, you want to go first, or you want me to kind of
You can go
tackle?
first.
All right, cool. So I told you I started at front desk, but and I said that I didn't. It took a couple of months to get there. But my first hotel job I walked into, they gave me a vacuum. I went in with a suit, and I'm like, yo, this is great. Like, I'm going to make all these folks happy. I'm going to exceed expectations, all this good stuff. I got that vacuum, and, you know, day one, it was a little shock. I was like, okay, well, I'll just be the guy in the hallway with the suit on, vacuuming and cleaning the bathrooms and all that good stuff. But
so you were a houseman when you walked in on day one. You were a houseman. Hey, you know, whatever it takes to get those candidates in the door, right?
That's it. I learned some interesting hiring tricks there from that experience. But honestly, though, I think there was no better way to start in an industry. You literally started on the bottom rung, and it was like, but you understood the value too of every single position inside of the hotel. And for me, I would say that's one of the most incredibly rewarding things from my experience inside of hospitality was working my way through as a houseman, then moving into laundry, during the management internship, actually getting boards of rooms and being able to assist the heart of the house when you get room rushes, like the scenario that Terry brought up where it was 9 p.m. and nobody checked in. I can tell you, countless amounts of times where it's 2 p.m. and guaranteed check-in time was either 3 and 4, and you had a multitude of folks trying to get into their rooms, get to their tournament, what have you, and really that trial by fire and kind of learning each position in the heart of the house, from houseman to laundry to room attendant to even inspections, really helped understand that if that department is not running as intended, the hotel will really suffer. It really is the heart of the house, from the team to the product that's being delivered to those folks that are paying to stay at that hotel. If that was a whole, then it really hindered that property's performance. So I feel like having that background in housekeeping later on in my career, you ask folks to do things that you've done before. You ask folks to do things that are feasible because you've done it with your own hands, as opposed to just saying, hey, I need you to do A, B, C, D, having never done it before. I feel like the team respects that you've been there before, that you understand it, and that you have realistic expectations, and that you're willing to help them through whatever you're asking them as well. To actually be somebody that can provide them advice is it helps groom them so that hopefully that they can take the same path. And I actually, in today's day and age, I feel like most people think like I'm going to be a front desk agent and then I'm going to be a general manager. But realistically, when folks are coming in on a career play and want to join the hospitality industry, I've learned from my own experiences that it's best for them to learn the heart of the house first and then tackle everything else. If you have all the intangibles, the stuff that you can't teach, like how to be personable, how to crack jokes, and just little things that you can't teach, if they have all of that, it's important to teach them everything that you've learned. And I kind of would just give everybody everything on a silver platter and say, hey, I've learned I'm telling you to do it this way because I've literally been there and I've tried 7 different ways to go about it. And over my years, I've learned this is the best way to get through a crazy day with 60 checkouts, or this is the best way to, just tackle anything that comes and just, it's rewarding.
Well, and it's also when they see that, okay, my GM has been there, so that means that I now have self-esteem knowing that I'm not like maybe destined to just be a houseman for the rest of my life if I don't want to be. Maybe that, they see, wait a second, this is an industry where you can literally start at the very bottom and work your way up to the very top. And yeah, you hear about that, but to actually see it and then your direct general manager to be a manifestation of that is definitely important to the staff. But Terry, what do you think? What about your intro to housekeeping and your kind of, what do you think? Do you love the department? Do you hate it? How do you feel?
Well, I agree. I mean, whether I love it or hate it, it's I would say one of the most important departments of your operation. I had the same experience with Yaz and the management training program, and quite honestly, it opened my eyes. Because, I came in as a front desk agent, and exactly what Yaz says. You think you're going to start at front desk and go right up, AGM, GM, etc. But quite honestly, in my opinion, I don't think it can be done. I think you should learn every single department inside and out, because I agree. How can I ask you to do something when I have never done it myself? I feel like getting a room of, a board of rooms and going and doing it and knowing, the ins and outs and understanding the operation makes you such a better manager, because you're able to understand not only what I'm asking, but from their position, being able to understand, how to be able to do it. And maybe I don't know how to do it, but that's why I'm looking to you. You're telling me how do I, to do this, but maybe I don't know how to do it. And if I've never done it myself, how can I tell you how to do it? I can only tell you what I've learned, in training, but some things you can't obtain from a textbook. That they were just learned by doing yourself. And I feel like not only housekeeping, but the laundry and the housemen, I feel like are also vitally important to know, because how, as a front desk person or manager or anything representing a property, how can I be able to present the best product that I can to my guest, not knowing, well, how well was that room cleaned, or how did they clean that room? Did they clean it decently, or was there trash in the hallway? I can't know. I can only do so much by myself, and you need to rely on the rest of your team and know that they're doing their job, they're doing it correctly, and they're supported in that as well.
Well, yeah, because I think, and again, is when you're in a management role and you're a GM or whatever, and it's like, okay, what are the two components of like a room attendant that you might be looking at? Well, quality and cleanliness, and then also productivity. And if you have never cleaned a room before, or better yet, haven't cleaned a board of rooms and been held to that same productivity standard, if you are wondering, why is it taking 80 minutes for this room attendant to clean their room? So you say, okay, well, I'm going to go up and I'm going to watch her clean rooms, and I'm going to see what's going on. If you've never cleaned a board of rooms, you might see, okay, well, she's hitting all the marks, but I'm still not sure why she's still at 80 minutes a room. Well, because there's like an art and a science to it. And if you know, what you're supposed to do, like scientifically speaking, to maximize productivity, to minimize the amount of trips that you take to your cart, to make sure that you're doing it sanitary, that you have all the dirty out before you bring any clean stuff into the room, like those sort of things that, you might be able to learn that theoretically, but you really, honestly, you've got to be having done it yourself and have a little bit of muscle memory on your hands. But I think it's safe to say, and I'm sure you guys would agree, that housekeeping at the end of the day is so important. And I know that everybody listening right now is probably whose hotel housekeeping departments are not functioning right, are feeling the pain, because it's so painful when it's not functioning right, and it feels oh so good when everything is a well-oiled machine. So with that, Prosafe, you guys co-founded a hotel safety and compliance company that primarily focuses on panic buttons and alarms for room attendants and back of house employees. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that and how that kind of came to be in the first place? Because you guys are a couple of operations managers and now you're the founders of a company. So a little bit of a transition there.
Yeah. So we're in the state of New Jersey. So Jersey had a legal requirement for panic buttons going into 2020.
Well, actually, let me stop you right there. What is a panic button? I actually realize that there may be people listening who genuinely have no idea what that is.
Okay. So a panic button is in its simplest form, is just a little similar to the key fob that you have for your car. It is there's literally a button, and worst comes to worst, it either emits a sound, and then there's other fashions of panic buttons that may include GPS, that may report to a dashboard, and really that's kind of where it's at today. But they've had panic buttons even like 10 years back, but they were these really big, clunky like boxes that housekeepers would hate to walk around with. It's a little bit smaller now. It's about the size of a key fob. But if anybody feels that they're in danger or uncomfortable with something, they'd press that button, and hopefully help would be on the way. So
reminds me a little bit of Life Alert commercials. I've fallen and I can't get up. Like this is like the Life Alert of housekeepers to a certain extent.
Exactly. And it's interesting. I really find Prosafe as like the body camera of housekeepers, and I'll get to that. But so in New Jersey, it was a legal requirement if you had over 100 rooms, anybody that works in a remote location would have to have a panic button. So at that time, Marriott's procurement reached out to me, and they had two pre-approved vendors. Not going to say their names, but I went through the bidding process. And to be honest, as an operator and somebody that's been in the business, I felt like it was an arm and a leg to just for compliance, not and
From
and
a cost standpoint, arm and a leg, like you were going to be paying more than what you thought was appropriate.
Absolutely. And even more so, if we're talking about safety, I didn't feel like it was doing enough in the case of an emergency. And that was the aha moment. And that's where I actually reached out to Terry, and we kind of just put our heads together. And I was like, there has to be a better way. Like I just found it like unreal that to get set up, it was like $12,000 to $20,000, and for a small 100-room hotel, and all I was getting in return was a little key fob with a panic button and a GPS chip inside of it. But say that person's on the fourth floor and the dashboard's all the way on the first floor. You get that notification that somebody needs help. It's going to take a moment to get up to the fourth floor, whether you run up the stairs or take an elevator. There's precious time there where if somebody was in danger, that you don't know what's going on. You know, it's a race against time at that point. You're trying to get there as fast as possible to ensure that you're bringing safety to your team member, and really that's kind of what birthed Prosafe. So we felt that there was a better way to go about this, and our solution uses a different mechanism. The pre-approved solutions use beacon technology, where most of the time you have to get a professional installation, where somebody would have to come to the hotel and they would have to install these little Bluetooth beacons in every single room. And that's kind of what drove that price so much for even small hotels, for a 100-room hotel. And as you know, Kyle and Terry both, after COVID, that is a massive CapEx item. When a lot of the industry has been bleeding, and it's even led to extensions at this point from some of the major brands, giving folks a little bit more time because of how hard the industry has been hit due to COVID. So when we created Prosafe, the priority numero uno was the safety of our folks, the safety of our team. And that's, we talked about how valuable the heart of the house is, and that was our number one. How do we create a solution that goes above and beyond compliance? And the beautiful thing here is franchisee companies can go with anyone that meets or exceeds brand standard. So there's the 5-star promise, which is from AHLA, which everyone has signed on to, and then the compliance dates for all the different flags are roughly a year apart, but a lot of that compliance goes into effect January 1st of 2022, and two of the 6 major flags are going to have it on QA come 2022. So
that's literally tomorrow. That is genuinely like, and when you think about it, because I think this is interesting, man. Like you have these other companies again, which will remain unnamed, but if you know, you know. But you've got these companies that are literally again checking a box, charging crazy prices because they know that people have to do this. And also a massive disruption to the operation. What for a I don't want to say basic. Well, I mean, I guess it is basic for a basic compliance tool that you're essentially you're twisting your arm basically because you have to get it, and you're resentful because of the high price tag, and then you have to have these guys come in and disrupt your operation and install in every room. It's like you wouldn't want to do that unless it was like an actual project like that would benefit your guests, or that would actually make a big difference, or even make a big difference in safety. But at the end of the day, it sounds like, you know, checking the box, like you said, there's precious time that, you know, if somebody feels that it's so threatened that they need to press the panic button, that means that something is happening now that needs not 6 minutes from now by the time you get to the room, but immediately. So, I mean, honestly, like, I see where you were coming from when you said, let's like try and do something different. And that's like really the spark of like the entrepreneurial, vision for people is like, you know, you see a problem or you see something that's not right, and then, okay, what are we going to do to actually solve that problem or fix that or provide something? So how does Prosafe stand out from the competition in that regard?
Terry, do you wanna?
Sure. So pretty much it almost felt like we were back and we both just started. You know, we had this problem to solve, and we wanted to create something that we ourselves wanted to use, and we wanted to have, you know, like we wanted to protect, you know, our staff and all of our employees, to make sure that once that button is hit, that something is immediately done. So we figured there's nothing better than audio and video, because we felt that between the time of me receiving the notification that my employee's in trouble and the time that it's going to take me to get there, anything could happen. And the worst thing in the world for me was to arrive on the situation, to my employee and my guest both telling me conflicting stories, and me not being able to discern between which is correct or more correct story. And we figured this was the best and truest way to be able to
talk about a liability, right? Talk about a liability issue as well with that, and walking on thin ice because of that. I've experienced the same exact thing where with a very severe accusation was made from a room attendant to a guest, and it was literally just a he said, she said. We had no evidence of anything. And for that reason, couldn't really pursue the situation. We kicked the guest out just because we went with the room attendant story. But beyond that, there was really no other recourse that we could have. I mean, we filled out a police report, but that was really the end of it. But anyway, I digress. Go ahead, Terry.
No, I mean, I agree. In that situation, Prosafe would be perfect, because then you could feel good knowing you kicked that guest out for a very good reason. And furthermore, if it was egregious enough, be able to submit evidence to the police to help support that criminal complaint that you submitted. Or vice versa, you know, maybe it was truly a misunderstanding. You know, misunderstandings do happen. And, you know, I wouldn't want to punish someone for a misunderstanding, you know, either way. But this way you can actually figure out and diagnose what the issue is.
So it's because, Yaz, you kind of mentioned like the body cam, because I said life alert and you said, well, I think it's more like a body camera. And you're referring to like almost like a law enforcement body camera that they wear on their uniforms. So when the room attendant presses the button, this scenario like kind of it creates almost like a file with that incident, with that information. Is that correct?
So it actually saves the file onto the local device first, and then after the case after the case is closed per se, it submits everything up to the cloud. So then that would go to our dashboard. And there's also some really unique things outside of just it being a panic button. Like we have the ability to chat with the dashboard. Like if the housekeeper was in trouble and they wanted to send an update to the dashboard after they press the panic button, they can communicate directly with the person that's monitoring that dashboard. They can also leave, say they didn't have the opportunity to type, they would have the ability to leave a audio recording that would be sent to the dashboard in the case that they were running, what have you. We thought about every worst case scenario and did everything in our power to include that in our solution. And even more so than that, there's location triggers as well. So say there was an issue in room 429 and the housekeeper left that room and went to the 4th floor linen chute. They'd be able to update their location via location triggers, and it would send that to the dashboard, and you would know exactly that associate has left 429, they have updated their location, and that they are in the 4th floor linen chute awaiting help at this point. And that might be a spot that's a little bit more of a safe place where they'd be able to actually, if they were shook, they can leave an audio recording so that you know exactly what happened. And another key thing about Prosafe too is every active user that's on Prosafe would get a notification that this person needs help. So it's not just that the dashboard is getting a notification that this person needs help. And this is kind of circles back to what I mentioned with the dashboards on the 1st floor. Then they're monitoring that. But somebody's on the 4th floor in 429, for example. There may be another housekeeper that's 5 or 6 doors down in room 416. And now when that person in 429 presses that button, that person in 416 is a couple doors away, and that person can get to that person that needs help within 10 seconds. You know what I mean? So that's one thing that we have that's actually protected in our solution. That we've kind of built a nice little moat around the way we do things at Prosafe that folks won't be able to replicate. So.
So you're the only panic button solution that can send a mass notification to the directory of users when somebody needs help.
Simultaneously.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's freaking cool, man, because it's like, doesn't that sound like such a basic concept? Like, it does to me. Like, it just makes sense, but that's also because, like, I've also used the other guys at my property previously, and like it just always like, why not just alert everybody for that exact same reason? Because there's power in numbers. So if somebody's nearby, they can chime in. Why is it only like a management responsibility to be overseeing this? Like, managers have so much on their plate already, number one. Number two, it's not confidential if somebody's in danger. So let's get there and get them help. But it just goes to show like how out of touch some of the other companies can be, because like if maybe they were not in this business, so they just thought, well, this is just a management function. And then sure enough, you guys come along and now it's patent protected, which actually makes me laugh because it seems so foundational that like anybody would think to do this. But you really have to have a special brain for like what actually you live and breathe the hotel operation for so long, and eventually you realize what it is that people need. So what else are you guys protected on? Like what other solutions are unique to Prosafe?
Ooh.
I know, me too. I'm like, yes.
No, but seriously, it just excites us. Like, so room level accuracy is another thing that's required via brand standard. So the mechanism that we have protected in our patent, and I don't want to I don't want to just put it out there, but our mechanism to get room level accuracy is what kind of makes us not just a super competitive solution in regards to what else is out there, but it's kind of the game changer too, in our opinion. At being an operator today, I'm a area GM where I oversee multiple hotels simultaneously. I understand a budget, and I understand where ownership is due to the pandemic. I understand how every single dollar counts. And I also understand that, this whole thing is birthed off of truly keeping our people safe. So I didn't, when we conceived, or when we conceptualized this solution, we wanted to make sure that we hit all the marks, from ownership to management to the associates. And our price for our solution and what you're getting with our solution, it's very hard to, I mean, I don't think that there's another solution out there that is doing what we're doing. And in the very near future, we have some other things that we're gonna really round out the hotel, or the tool space of the hotel industry, and it's really exciting.
Like a separate solution, like you're talking about like another component of Prosafe, or an update to the panic button solution?
So the panic button is where it is, but we're going to add some other tools in addition that are going to be able to create even more savings and more ease of use just in general for associates inside of the hotels. They'll know when these things hit, they'll know that hoteliers made this solution, because they're going to be like, you know what, this just makes sense. If I'm going to have a panic button to protect myself. And there's other, communication is something that is very important. And anybody that works on the floors knows that access is very important as well. So I'm being a little cryptic. Hopefully,
All right, guys, we're going to end the podcast now so I can talk to these guys off the record about what the hell is going on. Well, so, which we definitely will do, but I agree, because you ask anybody who's working in the hotel, like literally anybody, because I talk to people who are in this hotel industry every single day. And I talk to them, okay, what's the biggest thing that needs to be improved in your hotel? Communication is just, totally an issue for our property. It's universal. Doesn't matter if you're the 5-star hotel with the doorman who clicks its feet, or if you're the La Quinta on the side of the highway somewhere. Everybody could benefit from better communication in your hotels.
Mm-hmm. And that's
so.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so guys, we're almost out of time here, but I want to make sure that you guys get a chance to plug Prosafe, plug yourself, because not only are you guys founders of a brand new company, which our listeners could benefit from, learning more about. Number one, did you guys know that if you're with one of these major brands that you have this deadline coming up, and do your owners know about it? Do you know about it? Does the corporate office know about it? So reach out to these guys. They'll be able to give you all the information you need on the QA and compliance side, because they're privy to that. But also if you're looking to explore their solution. But aside from that, you guys are also just cool guys, down to earth hoteliers by heart. And I'm sure our audience would love to reach out to you just about other things. So where can we find you guys?
On social.
Our website is...
Go ahead, Derek.
Yep. Our
socials, websites, everything.
www.prosafehotels.com. You can book a demo through us. We can show you our suite.
And that'll be you guys doing that, right? You guys will do the demo. Like, see, correct. Don't you want to talk to these guys? I mean, just book a demo just for the hell of it, just to say hello. These guys are cool people.
And even more so, like LinkedIn, you'll find us. You'll find us on Facebook. And you mentioned a quick plug. So
yes, please do.
We are we're in about 30 hotels right now. one of the management companies that we worked with a portfolio of 25, we saved that management company $250,000. So, um, it, as opposed to any of our competitors that are out there today, with the solution that we provide today. So,
With a solution that they're happy with, right? Like they're loving this, I'm sure.
the teams at the hotels are literally ecstatic. They feel safe at work. They like that they have a way to update folks. God forbid there is an emergency. It's the solution that needs to be there that you hope you never have to use. But the hotel industry
Right.
is also uh, crazy at points and times, and you never know who's inside of any of these places. So, in the case that there is an emergency, having a solution like Prosafe really does go above and beyond. It gets rid of that he said, she said. And if it were to go to a court of law, you actually have some evidence to back your folks up. And the whole thing is take care of your folks and they'll take care of your guests. So I'm a big proponent of actually being about it and not just checking off a box. I want to provide everything that I can to keep my folks safe.
Well, and it's like not only do you have to do it, right? Like you literally do have to check the box. At the end of the day, reality is going to set in. Like your brand is going to be knocking down your door saying you need this. So yeah, to a certain extent, you do have to check off a box. But what a better way to show that you care about your people than selling this to your associates as a solution for the anxiety that they have, because as we've all seen during COVID, and of course, not to generalize, but we've had a lot of local travel parties, different stuff, lower rates, bringing in a different clientele. Security has never been more important in a hotel than ever. And I know for a lot of select service properties, they don't have, a director of security and three shifts worth of security officers and somebody monitoring cameras in an office, literally, which is basically unheard of. Even the full service urban center properties are starting to do away with that stuff because of costs. This is almost like its own mini automated security department within your hotel that you can kind of have the solution. And by the way, guys who are listening, this is not a sponsored episode. I actually just genuinely love what these guys are doing and who they are as people. And I want everybody to know about this solution because it makes sense to me, and I hope it does for you guys too. So for everybody listening, check the description and the show notes. We will have the link to Prosafe's website. We'll put your guys' LinkedIn profiles in there as well, so if anybody needs to reach out to you, they can. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week. Yaz, Terry, thank you so much for being on the show, guys.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of the video. If you haven't subscribed, please do so now. And be sure to tune in next week as we start our What I Learned as the GM of the Worst Hotel in the Brand series. We love you guys. We're heating up in 2022. Thank you so much for your support. See you next week.